Posted by you/musician_Monolith. People who used to not believe in ghosts but do now. What experience changed your mind? I have a story. So in high school, I worked kids' birthday parties. The place was basically a giant gym, and gymnastics/dance classes were also held there. One day, I came in, and one of the girls I worked with, who was very spiritual and very religious, was totally freaked out. During the gymnastics class she taught that morning, one of the kids was staring up at the ceiling. When she asked the kid what he was doing, he said there's a little boy up there and pointed at the ceiling. Strange enough, but whatever. Kids are weird. Later, two girls who were working a birthday party before mine came out of the gym and were visibly shaken. A pair of 5-year-old twins went down a slide and then stared at the ceiling. They both said that there was a little boy up there, in the same spot on the ceiling that the kid from the morning gymnastics class. We all went in and inspected the ceiling. Of course, it was just a regular, gray, warehouse-Y ceiling. But we were all super freaked out at that point. During my party, I was pushing a little boy on the giant swing we had in the gym. He, too, began to stare at the ceiling. He said directly to my face, "Hey, there's a little boy up there." We told all of our co-workers and managers about the 3 separate experiences we had today with children from different parties and classes seeing a little boy on the ceiling. The next day, we had downtime between parties, and nobody was in the gym. There are cameras in the gym that allow parents to see their children playing from the lobby. My manager called us out of the break room, "Guys, check this out." We come out and see the screen, which is streaming from the gym, showing that giant swing going back and forth. Nobody's in there. It's just the swing going. I like to think that the ghost was truly a little boy who just wanted to play, and he finally got to go on the swing. Could be worse. I'm still not sure if I believe, but there have been some weird things in my life that I can't explain. When I was 5 years old, I woke up in the night and my grandma was standing at the end of my bed, wearing a teal blue skirt and a matching blouse. I remember that it was summer and the sky was still light but not light enough for me to read, so I guess it was about 9 p.m. I sat up, she put her finger to her lips and I rubbed my eyes a couple of times, 'cause sleepy, and when I looked back she had gone. I just snuggled back under my covers thinking how nice it was to see her because I hadn't seen her for ages and I hoped she would still be there when I woke up. Next morning, my house was eerily quiet. My mum was in a worse mood than normal, but she had been crying so I asked her what was wrong. My grandma died the night before. She had been crossing a road after her bingo turned out, at 8:30 p.m., about 60 miles away from where we lived. She had a massive brain hemorrhage in the middle of the road and didn't even make it to the other side, let alone to my house 60 miles away. She was wearing a teal blue skirt and matching blouse. My wife and I swear that our daughter used to talk to ghosts when she was a toddler. She was an only child at the time. First instance I remember, was her telling me that she was talking to Nana. That's what I called my grandmother, who passed about 15 years before my daughter was born. My daughter was young and so I hadn't even talked about Nana to her, so I showed her a picture and asked who she spoke to. There were 4 women, 3 of which I didn't even know, but without hesitation she pointed to my Nana. Okay, no biggie. Some months later, my wife and I are trying for baby number 2. After my wife gets pregnant, my daughter is sitting next to her on the couch and puts her head on her belly and says, "Mommy, there's a baby in there." Okay, maybe that's coincidence. She overheard us saying something. A few weeks later, my wife miscarries. Maybe my daughter picked up on our sadness, who knows, but she again puts her head on her stomach and says, "Mommy, there's no baby in there anymore." Then, several months and one more, very early, miscarriage later, my daughter tells us, "I was talking to my brother last night and he said that my sister is coming to live with me soon." Again, she's an only child and had no, living, brother. We were still trying at this point, but had not taken any tests. We picked one up that night, and sure enough, pregnant. When time came to reveal the gender, I wasn't even interested. My daughter had already said it was a girl. Sure enough, I have 2 daughters. Once when I was in university I went to go see my therapist whom I had been seeing twice a week for about 5 months. On this day he was uncharacteristically quiet and I asked him if he was alright. He said he was fine, and we continued through what would be one of our most breakthrough sessions. A lot of repressed memories came up through it that have helped me to heal. At the end of the session I asked him why he was acting differently today than other days. He said when I walked in I was accompanied by a warrior-like person. He said he had the overwhelming feeling to perform as best he professionally could that day, and that he got the sense this warrior had fought a lot of battles to protect me. This would seem coincidental, except for 10 years later I was living on the other side of the world. I had a Puerto Rican neighbor I would see occasionally and eventually got pretty close with him and his family. One day as I was walking by, he kind of gets quiet and weird and then says in broken English, "Do you know there is a soldier who follows you around?" I knew instantly who he was talking about. In both instances the warrior/soldier was described the same, just over 6 feet, blonde curly hair, wearing primitive warrior clothing, and strangely a white guy. Neither of these people could have known that my closest brother who passed away at 14 was over 6 feet tall with blonde curly hair, and always was my protector. I was 8 when my grandma died. I was sad. So around 2 months passed and I was going at grandma's house where my grandpa lives. So I wake up at 3 a.m. and hear footsteps from bedroom door. I froze. I saw my grandma walking up to me and she said hello little sweetie and walked away. It was not sleep paralysis because I could move my hands and feet at morning. I told to my grandpa about it and he said I've seen grandma almost every night. She likes to visit, so don't be scared next time when you visit. Sorry for bad English. English is not my first language. My girlfriend's grandfather's ashes were on a little shelf in the living room, right next to a very solid/heavy angel statue. Well, one weekend she and I are fooling around on the living room couch and out of the corner of my eye, I see the angel statue fly off the wall, accompanied with a deep grunt. Now when I say this thing flew off the wall, I'm talking 7 to 8 feet of air before landing on the hardwood and leaving a dent where the wing hit. Even if this thing had fell off the wall, it would have dropped straight down, not soared with force. Well, we both stood there in shock, and I whispered if she had heard the grunt as well, to which she agreed. So we both booked it for the day. Well, that night at dinner we told her parents what happened, leaving out the naughty bit, and Megan's younger sister burst into tears saying she had seen a dark figure at the foot of her bed the last couple's nights but didn't want anyone to think she was crazy. Grandfather that died had mental health issues that caused a lot of pain. Velp, after that day I was a believer. When I was about 10 to 14 I had terrible insomnia. I would imagine things and felt incredibly unsafe as though I was being watched, although I never admitted this to anyone. I began only sleeping on the couch, with my back against the wall, and had to have the TV or some sort of light on. I missed an immense amount of school because of this, so my mom had me see a neurologist. The neurologist diagnosed me with some things, but the crazy part was during my sleep study I slept amazingly well, no issues at all, and slept in the real bed. Eventually I got transferred to a children's hospital, and speaking to the doctor I explained I would see things and felt uncomfortable. They had thought I was experiencing sleep paralysis. When they told my mom, she went ghost white. She pulled me aside and explained she was experiencing things, too. She described in detail what I was seeing. That evening she approached my brother and asked broad questions: "Do you have anything weird happen at home?" etc. He also described what we experienced. It was then I realized we must have paranormal activity, and I've believed it ever since. When we moved out of that house all my sleep issues abruptly stopped and I haven't experienced it since. I still don't believe in ghosts, but I did have a strange experience. I had a cat who I found in a ditch many years ago. She was cute and I pet her, so she followed me back down the train tracks about a mile to my home. I opened the door for her and she went in. She was offered the opportunity to go back out, and did for a moment, but then came back in. She was mine forever. I've had many pets over the years and loved them all. But this one was different. She wanted to be near me all the time. I'd often said I'd never had a cat who made me feel like my personal space was being violated before. She followed me up to bed every night and purred me to sleep. She died fairly quickly. I barely even had a chance to say goodbye. I knew she was ill, having been diagnosed with hyperthyroidism, which cat owners will know is not a good thing to hear. Although progress has been made, ask your vets about the pens. They've worked miracles for my current cat who also has it. They vomit their food up and waste away slowly, eventually succumbing to either congestive heart failure or kidney damage. She had taken a turn for the worse and I thought her treatment wasn't working. On examination, they found tumors in her stomach and liver. She had been dealt a mortal blow and was only going to suffer harder and harder. In the most painful one I've ever had to deal with, I put her down and she even meowed one last time before the end. I forgot to mention that this cat was also the most talkative I've ever had. She frankly wouldn't shut up. I buried her in the yard to keep her close and tried to go to sleep, completely beside myself with grief. As I lay down, I heard something familiar. I live in an old house and my bedroom doesn't have a door, so I installed one of those plastic sliding doors. The slats it's made of make a telltale clacking sound when they're disturbed, like they did when a cat pushes in between them and the doorframe. I heard this, and a moment later, I felt the foot of my bed compress, and could feel the mattress deform around my feet, up beside my legs and roughly to my hips. I looked. No cat. I don't know how to explain this. I don't believe in ghosts, and I'm sure grief can cause some pretty significant psychological disturbances. A quick perusal of my post history will very quickly show I am anything but cuddly, but I was absolutely in the kind of deep grief where one would expect that, as I love that cat more than basically anything else. Even typing this now, years later, is making my eyes well up with sadness for my lost friend. I could write off the sound of the plastic slats as a breeze or a hallucination. Older members of my family said they saw my father after he died, and I've read about grief-induced hallucinations before. But to feel my mattress deform like that, in exactly the way she used to circle my feet and come up beside me, I don't know what to think. Worked at a public pool. I would work alone after hours cleaning the building and the pool. One night around 2 a.m. I'm cleaning the change rooms. The pool has been closed for 4 hours at this time. I hear the sound of a child's laughter and bare feet running across the pool deck. I go out and scan the area. There's nobody in sight. The doors are all closed and locked. There is nowhere a kid could be hiding. No wet footprints on the pool deck. I recheck the doors and the security monitors. I am the only person in the building. It was unsettling. Most of my family is extremely religious and believe in ghosts wholeheartedly. Most of them claim to have seen something paranormal at some point in their lives. I wasn't very religious, and I always thought to myself, if I haven't seen it, then it's not real. That changed during my senior year in HS. I was dog sitting at my great aunt's house while she was out of town for a few days. A little after midnight, I'm watching a movie and my aunt's dog starts barking like crazy and runs up the stairs at full speed. The dog was small, but fierce. Suddenly, I clear as day heard a gravelly voice at the top of the stairs say, "Bad doggy." The voice was deep and masculine. I went upstairs because I was certain nobody else was supposed to be there. I looked around and there was nobody in sight. The dog was still barking at something that I couldn't see. She was just barking at an empty hallway. That's when I heard footsteps walking away from us down the hall and into my aunt's bedroom. I could hear the footsteps, but I couldn't see anybody making them. I noped the fuck out of that house with the dog and went outside in my car. The dog and I slept there for the night. I'm not entirely sure WTF I experienced that night, but I definitely believe in the paranormal now. I never told my aunt about what happened, but apparently my great uncle, her husband, had died in that house a few months after I was born. I never knew him, but I'm willing to bet that it was him who I heard that night. I was always on the fence about ghosts because there was no scientific evidence of them being real, and I was going through a big question phase with religion/afterlife at the time anyway. But my family moved into an old farmhouse when I was 12. This was a very old farmhouse with a build date around the Civil War. The original owner's name was still on the old barn out back, and we found numerous old antiques built into the walls when we completely renovated the place. A few odd and end things happened after we first moved in, but distinct things started happening to myself after I turned 16. But never to my sister until after she turned 16 too. The most prominent memory I have, the upstairs consisted of 2 bedrooms. One bedroom was the room at the top of the stairs, the second bedroom was in a separate room just to the left of the top of the stairs. I had the private room and my sister's room was the landing. When someone walked up the stairs it was very distinct, you could hear each individual step and the creaks got louder as the person approaching got closer. So one night I am sitting on my bed watching TV or something and I hear my sister come up the steps and go lay on her bed, so I start talking to her. When she doesn't answer me I get annoyed and go into her room to figure out what her problem is, only she is not in there. My mind was blown because I know I heard her. I call for her and she had been downstairs the entire time. We never felt threatened. But it did seem that this entity liked picking only on women. Even my mother, who absolutely doesn't believe in ghosts, had to admit some odd things had happened. I think the funniest thing was having my ponytail pulled while I was doing the dishes. I don't know why it was so funny. It just cracked me up that whatever it was felt like playing with my hair. So my grandma used to live with me. She was in the room next to mine and would get up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, which is in my room. There is drop from her room to mine, so we put a night light outside the bathroom so she could see the way. It was like this for about 12 years. Only a few days after she had passed away I was in my bed with my cat and dog reading a book or something. I remember my cat and dog both waking up and looking to the night light. My cat got up and went to the light, pawing at it and making nosies. My dog just stayed still, not barking. I would grab him so he would calm down or go to sleep, but he never took his eyes off that spot. That's when I saw what I can only say looked like light bend around the night light. I was positive it was my grandma coming back to use the bathroom and or check on me and the house. To this day, she died about 5 years ago, I still have that night light there and turn it on every night for her. I haven't seen her or experienced anything like it again, but I'm sure she's still around. When I was in my late 20s, I was dating my girlfriend, soon to be wife. We had been together for a while. One summer, July 3rd, her sister was abducted and killed by a group of 6 men. All the men were eventually caught and tried. The trials and the aftermath for the family were devastating and debilitating for them for many, many years. Fast forward 3 months, after the funeral. I arrived at my girlfriend's house to wait for her to get off from her job as a nurse at a local hospital. Neither of her parents were home. Just me, alone in the house. So I went into the family room, turned on the TV, sat down in the couch, got comfortable and began to watch. Clear as a bell, I heard my girlfriend's sister's voice in my right ear, just off my shoulder, call my name. I turned to look at the seat next to me, and of course there was nobody there. I stared at the spot in the couch next to me for a long while. Feeling a bit uneasy, I turned off the TV and went outside to wait on the porch. NSFW, I was one of the firefighters working on Ground Zero for 9/11. I lost 2 of my buddies, and it still haunts me to this day. As I was making my way through the rubble, I heard someone screaming. I bolted to wherever I heard the sound, and only found a twisted body on a rebar. The body was burnt and pale, and it looked like it had been there a while. I watched a firefighter walk up the rubble towards me, and hug me. I was confused, but I understood why he wanted a hug. I hugged him back, and when I opened my eyes, there was no firefighter. I stood there, holding a helmet. I don't know how I got this helmet, but it was in my hands. The golden eagle on the front had been bronzed, and a hole through the side of the helmet, with dried blood around it. I was holding this helmet in tears, while in front of an impaled civilian. I did some research, and the firefighter that I hugged had apparently died 3 hours before I saw him. I still have that helmet, and I will never forget the hug the fallen firefighter gave me. My aunt used to live above a convenience store. It was a duplex and had a mud room that connected the front doors to each apartment. The other apartment was empty and unlocked, so my cousins and I would hang out in there. One night we are playing hide and seek in the empty apartment. My cousin and I are running from the seeker and the hallway door slams shut in front of us. We freak out and end the game because we are too scared. We tell our parents, and my aunt happens to have a night vision baby camera. She sets it up in the living room of the empty apartment and we can all see it on the TV in her house. We are watching it for about 10 minutes, dust is flying everywhere and nothing is happening. Out of the darkness, a Pepsi can rolls up and hits the base of the camera. Everybody is like, WTF, this bitch is haunted. I never went up the stairs alone to get to her house again, I was too freaked out. About 3 years ago, the entire building burned down. Unfortunately, I don't know the cause. I was having a conversation with my mom when I was a teenager. Mid-sentence I felt a hand grab my arm and looked to see who it was. No one was there and my mom didn't see anyone. Apparently the same thing happened to my sister a few weeks before. Also, all the random voices and bags falling off shelves and moving shadows in the periphery. I believe it was just the house that was haunted, but they weren't malicious, so it was all good. In 2011 I was studying abroad in Morocco. We were staying in a riad in the Medina of Marrakesh with tall, ornate windows. I had one roommate who was already asleep this night. I thought I saw her sitting up in the bed next to me wearing all white. Suddenly I saw a white, hazy thing vaguely shaped like a person floating above me next to the big windows. I was so scared I went in the bathroom, turned the light on and stayed in the bathtub all night. My roommate didn't see anything.